guys, welcome to my class. I teach on OutSchool. I teach about 14 different photography classes relating to composition, editing, learning about your digital DSLR, creative photography for any camera, all the things. So I do that, and then so this class is one of the classes that I actually teach to my students on outschool.com. So I am going to talk to you about what it's like to edit like a pro. So from a book called Complete Photography, written by Chris Gatcomb, he says, the idea of post-processing or editing photographs is not a new one. From the dawn of photography, paper, glass, film, and countless other materials have been subjected to myriad chemical treatments to process a picture. Digital photography is no different. All that has changed is that now we work on our images in a light room rather than a dark room, and we no longer need to use liquid chemicals. So there are two kinds of post-processing. The technical kind, but this is one that people can also change in camera before editing. So that's why it's called technical, because you can also do it in camera and then you don't have to fix it out of camera in post-processing. Some examples are white balance, the type of file, exposure, etc. Creative editing is where you make your image your own. You've got color, contrast, filters, elements, black and white, etc. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about the light stack today. So that means that we are basically talking about creative editing today. Your creative approach to editing is just as important as the actual editing tools. So think about what you want the final photo to look like before you edit. What is your goal? Is it light and airy, edgy, contrasty, moody? Here's some examples. And if I missed any, let me know in the comments. So this one is more dark and moody. This is more of a light and airy example. This one is more edgy, as you can see, her hair, or contrasty. Her hair is very strand-alike. It's got nice edges to it, crisp and clear. It's not blurry at all, and the colors are very bright. This one is a bit of a softer image, and this one is pretty much close to real life. So there's just different ways that you can edit photos, and there's obviously more than this as well. So there's all kinds of different editing programs that you could use. I don't know what you have in particular, whether you're a student of mine or not, but there are lots of different kinds. The one thing that you can do is you can look on your computer. Usually there is a editing program in your Photos app or your Photos file, your Photos program, or under Google. There can be Google Photos, and there can be editing, a way to edit in that area. I'm going to show you that in a minute because you can edit. I have that here on my Mac. It's a Photos app, kind of. And it's free. It's usually something that comes with your computer, or you can do it online. And then it says there's like a spot where you can edit. And they're similar to the editing in Photoshop or Lightroom, but they're not the same. So Photoshop or Lightroom, those are the ones that really give you some good edits, and they're more professional. The professional photographers usually use Lightroom and then sometimes Photoshop, depending on what they're doing. GIMP is very similar to Lightroom. It's just a free version. Photoshop or Lightroom costs $20 a month for students. And then there's also a Lightroom mobile app that you could use, and that's a free app. And it's very good, similar to this one up here, just more mobile friendly. So let me know what you have. Let me know what you use and what you like. So the light stack or the tab are also called the basic tools, and we're going to talk about those today. The first thing we're going to talk about is cropping, because in my process for editing, I like to crop first, and I look for two things when I'm cropping. I try to line up my subject, or I think about the composition of the image and what I was going for, and then what I actually took. And sometimes I have to crop it to get it into the rule of thirds, or whatever composition I'm thinking of for that image. So that's what I do. And then I also make sure I straighten any horizon lines. As you can see, this horizon line is crooked. So I fixed it, and here's an example of how I fixed it. So definitely straighten the horizon line. It's more pleasing to look at a photo that's straight. Contrast is the state of being strikingly different from something else. Obviously, you can see the edge very clearly because one side is light and one side is really dark. So when you edit, your editing program is making one side lighter and one side darker naturally to create that crisp line or crisp contrast. Highlights are actually the lightest colors or the brightest spots in your image. Shadows are the darkest spots in your image. Exposure is the overall lightness or darkness of an image, and you see here that there is a lot of light coming through this image, and it just looks nice that way. It's actually a light leak. The sun was setting right behind them, and it just looks really adorable, especially with his little yawn. Okay, and we'll get into black and white editing another day. I'm not doing that in this particular session. So editing on your computer for free, that's kind of what I'm going over in this photo or video. So this is an example of the editing program on your computer under the Photos tab. So whether you're on Google Photos or you have it on a PC of some kind or the Mac, you should have a Photos app. And underneath your Photos app, when you click on a photo, you should be able to click Edit up here. And then you can go down, and mine have this little triangle next to them. And when I click on them, it closes them, and when I click on it again, it opens it. And so you can either click Auto for light, here's an example, or you can move the slider back and forth. And if you don't like it, there's an arrow where you can take it away. And then, so this is a tab underneath light. So all these different things affect how your picture reads the light or how you want to change or edit the light in your photo. So brilliance is what they call it here in my Mac, and it has a different name for that in Photoshop, which you'll see later. But brilliance lightens it. You can see the change that it adds to it. Totally gives it a different mood from one to the other. And then let's see, if you double click, yeah, it takes it right back to the middle if you double click on it. Exposure lightens the photo or darkens the photo. Double click it, double tap, and it takes it away. Highlights, it lightens or darkens the lightest spots in the photo. Shadows, obviously that's the darkest spots in the photo, you know, like this little dark spot underneath the umbrella or the tiki hut, that's a shadow. You've got the shadows down here underneath it, the shadow of the grass around here, like all of this is shadow right there. So, and right inside the palm branches too, there's little tiny shadows. So when I move that slider, you can tell that it's lightening or darkening the shadows. Like if I darken it, it's really making those shadows super dark. And if I lighten it, it's obviously taking away all the shadows as much as it can. So definitely a different look with each one. Brightness of the photo Now, whenever you do one thing, like say that I took my slider up here and I increased that. See how it's changing everything all together? So this is kind of like a little shortcut. You can always just move this slider and it will adjust all the sliders underneath it. I don't know if you have something like that on your computer that does that, but now I've messed up what I did, but that's okay. So say that I bring it down to here. I think that looks pretty cool. It's really bright and it kind of has a moody evening feel to it. And say that I wanted to change just the brightness on it. I can totally do that, see? And you still have everything else the same. So you could always start with something like the shortcut and then go down here and adjust the sliders to get more of what you're looking for. And then contrast, obviously it's adding more edges to everything and allowing everything to be more contrasty. You can really see it here on the palm branches and on the trees. But if you were to take the contrast the other way, look at how, oh goodness, it's kind of just like dreamy looking. It has a real washed out kind of look to it. So definitely different looks that you can get. And black point, I think that's just the blacks in the photo, which I actually like that a little darker rather than lighter. It looks kind of cool. So yeah, this is just the light stack that I'm talking about on your editing software, whatever software that you use. All right, talk to you soon.